Welcome to This Explainer. We're diving straight into the complex, incredibly high-stakes landscape of the 2026 real estate market. Today, we're decoding the psychology, the unique behavioral quirks, and the downright strategic negotiation tactics of modern buyers and sellers. Whether you're actively hunting for a house, trying to sell one, or just kind of fascinated by the human behavior behind these massive financial moves, understanding the mind of the person sitting across that closing table, well, that might just be your biggest competitive advantage.
So here's our quick roadmap for today. 1. The 2025 market reality. 2. Profiles of today's buyers. 3. Spotting the motivated seller. 4. The stale listing trap. 5. The psychology of lowballing. And 6. Managing deal expectations. Let's get right into it.
Kicking things off with Section 1, the 2025 market reality. Okay, to set the board, we absolutely have to start with this number. It's honestly a little shocking. 21%. First-time homebuyers have shrunk to a historic low of just 21% of the total market. And what's really wild is the sheer scale of that drop. Historically, that norm has hovered right around 40%. So an entire massive demographic has essentially just retreated from the market right now.
Now, contrast that massive hurdle with this number, 62. That is the record-high median age of repeat buyers right now. We're looking at a landscape where half of these older repeat buyers are dropping massive down payments. And incredibly, nearly a third of them are just paying cash for the whole shebang. They aren't stressing over financing, they're literally leveraging years and years of built-up housing equity.
And this stark divide? It comes directly from the National Association of Realtors 2025 report. On one side, you've got your typical first-time buyer, whose median age, by the way, has been pushed all the way up to 40, battling nearly 6.7% mortgage rates, crazy high rent, and student loans. And then on the exact opposite side, you've got these cash-heavy, older repeat buyers. It is a market of absolute extremes, and it's completely dictating how homes are bought and sold today.
Which brings us nicely to Section 2, Profiles of Today's Buyers.
Given that huge financial divide, real estate pros are seeing some very distinct characters out in the wild. You've got the "I'm just looking" buyer, who swears they aren't in a rush but then texts their agent at 11:30 at night wanting a tour tomorrow. Then there's the HGTV expectation buyer. You know the type. They walk into a totally standard, average home and expect a $300,000 backyard oasis with zero neighbors. You'll also run into the rate watcher, a buyer who treats housing like the daily stock market, completely missing out on great homes because they're waiting for interest rates to drop just a tiny fraction of a percent. And finally, the "I can fix it" buyer. This is your overly optimistic weekend warrior who ultimately ends up Googling how to install a toilet at 2 a.m. in the middle of a literal construction zone.
Now, if you want to see the ultimate clash of extremes at a showing, look at the spreadsheet buyer versus the emotional buyer. The spreadsheet buyer rolls up armed with pie charts, price per square foot analysis, and 10-year economic forecasts. You constantly have to gently remind them, hey, you're buying a home, not a spreadsheet. But on the exact opposite end, the emotional buyer. I mean, 30 seconds after walking through the front door, they're already mentally placing the Christmas tree and mapping out summer barbecues, usually before they've even seen the basement.
Moving on to Section 3, Spotting the Motivated Seller.
Listen, if you're a buyer trying to find a solid deal in this super tight market, your primary goal is to find someone who is highly motivated, maybe even a little desperate. And you can actually play detective and spot this motivation through really subtle visual clues during a showing. For instance, if you walk into an elderly person's 2-story home and find a full set of daily toiletries in the first floor powder room, that tells you they probably can't navigate the stairs anymore. Or what about a completely empty house? That means the seller is likely paying a mortgage and utility bills on a place they aren't even living in. Another big one, noticing a small starter house just absolutely bursting with kids' bunk beds and cribs right before the new school year starts. That family is bursting at the seams and they need space right now. And of course, situations like absolute auctions or divorcing owners, those almost always signal a very strong need to liquidate the asset fast.
Let's look at the other side of the coin in Section 4, the stale listing trap.
You know, even in a market with incredibly low overall inventory, some houses still manage to fall into this terrible, invisible limbo. It's absolutely crucial to understand the timeline here. In the 2026 market, if a property sits for 45 to 60 days without a serious offer, it crosses a dangerous psychological threshold. It goes from being a normal property to a stigmatized, stale listing. When buyers scroll past and see those high days on market numbers, they don't think, oh, an opportunity. No way. They immediately assume there's a massive hidden problem, either with the condition, the price, or just the way it's being marketed.
So, to rescue a sale from this trap, sellers have to pull off a very deliberate reboot strategy. You can't just drop the price by a tiny fraction and hope for the best. You literally have to do a hard reset. That means completely terminating the listing for 2 to 4 weeks. You have to stop that public clock and let the market just forget about it. During that offline time, you address the feedback loop. You fix whatever glaring issues scared everyone away in the first place. Then, you aggressively relaunch with a realistic new price and brand new, stunning photos to recapture that absolutely crucial new listing energy.
Next up, Section 5, the psychology of lowballing.
Okay, so how do we actually bring these completely different buyers and sellers together to make a deal, especially when money is so tight right now? Well, it's tempting for a buyer to want to be a lowball legend, right? Strolling in and offering $650,000 on a house listed for $790,000. But listen to me, doing this abruptly is incredibly dangerous. Scientific research and actual MRI scans prove that lowball offers literally stimulate the human brain's center of disgust. Seriously, when you just lob a massive discount at a seller out of nowhere, you aren't starting a negotiation, you're triggering a vendetta response. They feel insulted, their walls go up, and honestly, they might just flat out refuse to sell to you even if you try to raise your price later.
To negotiate effectively without sparking that disgust reflex, you have to follow a very specific psychological sequence. Rule number 1, do not make enemies. Instead of just attacking their asking price, ask what's called a Trojan question. This is a strategic question where you already know the answer is going to highlight a defect in the house. Like, say, asking if the roof needs replacing when you can clearly see shingles falling off into the yard. Once they admit the flaw, you immediately follow up with a Trojan compliment. You gently say something like, well, replacing a roof is definitely expensive, but man, this neighborhood is just beautifully quiet. It's brilliant because it perfectly focuses their mind on the home's negatives and the upcoming repair costs, but you maintain this friendly, respectful rapport. It makes them so much more receptive when you do finally present that lower offer.
Let's wrap things up with Section 6, managing deal expectations.
So how does all this psychological groundwork help us at the closing table? Well, this quote from real estate professionals pretty much hits the nail on the head. Most deals fall apart when people operate from wishes instead of reality. The absolutely crucial point for both parties, buyer and seller alike, is that you have to let the actual hard market data guide your decisions. You have to work together toward a common solution instead of getting blinded by your own emotional desires or wishes for what you kind of hope the home should be worth.
Take a look at this. This is a brilliant example of a strategic script used by top-tier agents to ground a seller who just got handed an offer way lower than they wanted. Instead of letting that seller react with that disgust response we just talked about, the agent completely reframes the conversation. They acknowledge the time on the market, saying, before responding, let's think about it. We've been on the market for X amount of time. And then they immediately pivot the focus to the buyer's actual strengths. These buyers are pre-approved and flexible. It totally shifts the psychology away from anger over a price tag and points it directly toward the security of a guaranteed, smooth transaction. As you step out into this completely high-stakes 2026 landscape, I want you to really take a moment and reflect. Are you navigating the real estate market based on hard facts, or are you acting purely on emotion and fear? Ask yourself, which of those archetypes is sitting across the closing table from you right now? Remember, in a market this polarized, the person who best understands the human mind is the one who walks away with the keys. So the next time you write an offer or list a home, what exactly is your psychology signaling?